All right, so let's start off. Let's start off with your maps. We'll go in order. We'll have Shima go first, Flak, then Vode, and we'll try not to have you guys talk over each other too much. Let each other have a turn, and then I'll ask you questions in turn about other aspects. So, Shinra, go right ahead. Let's see. What map do you think is the worst map in this game? Worst design map in this game? Why do you think it's the worst map in the game?
I'm gonna go with a bit of a curveball and go with Fiery Salient, simply because it wasn't designed. Someone just like took some doodads, made the terrain worse, and if you ever rolled it with a heavy that's not fast in any way, you see like more than one cancer, and you're like, fuck. Well, I know what I'm doing for this map. Eating shit from above. And there's no other way around it.
So Shima's going with Fiery Salient, worst map in the game.
Can we respond to him, or is that?
You can, but first just explain your map, and then we'll go back, and you guys can refute others' arguments. So Flat, go ahead and.
I think Windstorm, just because that city is absolutely garbage. Like, you're sniping in fucking heavies, which is fucking retarded. Then you have that whole other side of the map, which is almost useless. I mean, you can play it, but it's such a corridor and it's so boring. There's water everywhere, which just makes flexing around the mediums a pain in the ass. So I think it's worst.
Okay, so he's going for that. So Vode.
I think you guys are being silly. The worst map is obviously Swamp. It's super campy. You can't cross the middle of the map, leaving two little tiny lanes to try and push on the enemy base, and they always have TDs camping in the base, which basically means that you're forced to camp your side, which is not fun for anybody, and you're just waiting for Artie to hit you because you can't move anywhere because you're so slow.
Okay. So Shima, why is your map worse than the other two? What makes your map? Because obviously you know that Prokhorovka is Fire Salient as well. Why is yours not only worse than Proc, but also worse than these guys' selections?
Well, I mean, they didn't redesign Fiery Salient. They just made it worse by throwing random tanks and shit. So there was no design into it. I mean, yeah, there's planes above, but again, if you're talking about a map where it's like, okay, my day is fucked, you can play lights on Himmels. You can play like anything on most maps, but you get a slow heavy. Odds are you're going to be eating shit. Like, there's just no two ways around like having to eat just piles of shit, and there's no way around it.
So
I mean,
would you say that your map would eliminate more tanks being viable than the other two? So for example, you could play the other two, and if you got a certain tank, you're taking a certain tank, you wouldn't be so devastated as you would be with Fire Salient. Because I think they are actually thinking of removing Prokhorovka and leaving Fiery Salient. So, I mean, but would you say that no tank choice is really that great on Fiery Salient, whereas at least on the other maps, you could be reasonably happy to take some sort of tank destroyer, heavy tank, whatever?
oh no, if I get a medium on Fiery Salient, I don't really care. Like, you're going to town, it's just like farming for days and days and days. But, I mean, Swamp, really, I'm not sure what Vote Green's talking about there. Because any map where you get to vision fuck people is a good map. But, guess I'll figure it out when he gets above 2,000.
Flack?
So, I mean, Fiery Salient, I think it's fine, because, like, the map itself isn't what's broken. What's broken is, like, 3 Arties on Fiery Salient.
Quiet, let me know.
At that point, you're screwed. I mean, I think you can play any tank on any map. It's just a matter of positioning, but the 3 Artie on Fiery Salient, that's what screws you. And, I mean, what was Votato's map? He said Swamp? Like, I don't know what he's talking about. You can't flex across the mid. I do it literally every game on Swamp. I mean, it's just a matter of whittling them down a little bit, and then you can move across. Now, whichever side you're on, they're either pushing back off of that hill, which shoots you as you cross,
okay,
or, you know, they're completely wrecked on that side. So, I mean, you can totally push cross. And, I mean, you have the vision thing. The problem with Swamp, I think, is just, I mean, there's too many stupid TD camping spots. I mean, that's like it'll be fixed eventually. I'm sure they fixed that with Northwest. It had all those broken TD spots.
So would you argue in 8.6 with the view range nerf to tank destroyers that Swamp will be more playable than the others, or yours rather?
I don't think it'll make a huge difference because, I mean, the firing lanes for TDs on Swamp I don't think are quite as long as a lot of maps, so I don't think it'll have a huge effect. But I'm sure it will have some difference. But again, that's like sort of end game right there. It's not, you're not talking about throughout the whole game that it actually matters. Just end game that TD nerf will hurt.
Vode, why is your map worse than the other two?
Alright, so Proc or Fiery Salient, sometimes they're not particularly fun to play in pubs, and it can suck. But at least in like esports or clan wars, they're pretty well balanced and fair. Windstorm is actually quite fun to play, I think. The city is nice. The north is at least playable for mediums. There's lots of ways you can move around and do work. It's just really hard to chai snipe on the map, which I think might hurt Flak, but for non-stat patters, it's a pretty good map. And let's see, Swamp. Yeah, even in like clan wars, you just camp so hard, and even a pubby clan could beat a good clan if they just turtle well, bring enough arty, bring enough TDs.
User joined
Yeah,
your
it'll be a
channel.
little bit better after the camo nerf and the view range nerf, but like, or the camo buff. But I don't know, TDs will be able to just camp even more maybe. It's so slow to move across that swamp. In pubs maybe if you like kill a few of them you can go across, but you have to pay so heavily to get across there, and it takes so long. And if they push around on one of the flanks, then it's going to take you forever to get back to your own base to defend it.
Hang on, Major, can you put an X in front of your name just so you go down to the bottom, because they're doing a debate, and because you're in the channel that actually move these guys down so it's out of sync on the stream.
I thought Vodean's argument was so stupid that he just like knocked him off.
Sorry, what's that, Anfield? I don't understand at all.
We're doing tank debates, and I have the team speak overlaid on the stream so people know who's talking, but because you joined, you pushed Vode off of it. You would be able to
Thank you,
see
bully.
if you looked, but if you put an X, there you go. It should put you. Well,
So, what the hell's a tank
I
debate?
thought I would put an X. Well, I guess it doesn't work. Never mind.
His TS permissions is going to throw him at the top.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, Major, just tune into the stream, bro. Leave late channel and listen to the thing
Eat dicks.
User left your channel.
or that. Okay.
Rude.
Rude. All right. So okay, it's interesting and it's difficult because you all have interesting arguments. And I guess it can often come down to the problem with what Shim is arguing with Fiery Salient, and I'm not a fan of Proc or Fiery Salient, but I can think of light tanks that can play that map just fine, medium tanks that can play that fine. Tank destroyers and heavy tanks kind of get shafted a little bit, but there is some playability. Flak, I do feel like there's at least some, dynamic gameplay that can play it on Windstorm. It's not a great map, but there are different avenues of attack. It's a large map. There's some cover from artillery. You have the city and other things. So there's that. Vote, I kind of see what you're going with, because Swamp can turn into a complete turtle, and in order to break the turtle, you actually still need the right kind of tank to do so. And the terrain passability is a bit of a problem. It's difficult, and it's one of those where I'm still sort of on the edge. I think I'm going to give Vote the point, because I think Swamp is the worst of the three, just purely because of how often it turns into a turtle fest, and how even if you have light tanks, medium tanks, it can still be difficult to totally break the camp because you have to rely on your allies to do things. That's never a good map. So Vote gets the point for this one. We're going to move on to our next question, which is going to be, which tank is more retarded by Peachster? He wants to know, is the 183 more retarded or the Waffentrager E100 more retarded? So you're going to have to argue one or the other. So one of you will get a point, the other one, or rather, if two of you pick one of the same tank, then I'll just take whoever had the best argument for why that tank is broken. If they're too similar, then I'll just give you both the points. So we'll go ahead with Vode this time, and then we'll go work backwards. So Vode, which one is more broken, more retarded, the 183 or the Waffentrager E100?
I'm gonna have to go with the Waffentrager because the Waffentrager is so broken that they're having to remove it from the game, while the 183 it's still pretty broken, but it's not so broken that they didn't make a clone of it. Now there's two of them. So, yeah, I definitely think the Waffle E100 is broken.
Okay, so Vode's going to go with the Waffenflak.
I'm going to go with the Waffle as well. Like, the 183, it can be broken, but it's not reliably broken. Like, the 183, yes, you can get those retarded high rolls, which just completely annihilate a tank, but the Waffle, you load APCR and you just auto-aim everything. It doesn't matter. You're going to kill it.
Gonna have to go with the 183 because Waffle's getting a nerf 9.6. 183's got a buff already in 9.5. One of these tanks is going in the right direction. One of these tanks just went in completely the wrong one.
Okay, so we have two for the Waffentrager and one for the 183. Now, Vode brings up an interesting point in the fact that the Waffen is actually getting removed from the game at some future point, whereas he's right with it. Where the 183, they actually made a 100 clone. Now, that's all also assuming that Wargaming can make positive decisions all the time. So, you know, there's that as well. But that's a good point. And Flak says that just basically the Waffentrager can just shit on anything it instantly comes in contact with. So what I want to know between you guys. With the 183, obviously it relies on Hesh. Is Hesh a more broken, gimmicky mechanic in terms of how the 183 uses Hesh, not like the Centurion, versus the Waffentrager, which has the large autoloader? So which one is more broken and why? So Shipma, you can go ahead.
I mean, apples and oranges. Like, you're kind of comparing like just different flavors. They're both retardedly broken. No one's gonna argue against that. Yeah, a waffle who's not driven by an idiot is quite capable of pushing around and clipping you. And after you burnt your kit, you're sitting there like, fuck. Kind of sucks. That said, most waffle players who aren't nearly as practiced in the tank tend to die in the first minute and a half. 183 doesn't happen, and them up armoring it, still gonna have to make it top the hate list.
So you're arguing that because the 183 has more survivability, especially with the new buff turret, it makes it more broken because it has more opportunities to deal out that devastating hit with this cannon, versus the Waffentrager, which is far more vulnerable and it's easier, so to speak, to take down.
Waffle gets subject more to Darwin Awards far more quickly than the 183.
Well, I think it's interesting actually which one would win in a fight, and it really would depend on the 183's role and exactly where it hits the Waffen. But that's interesting that you point out that obviously the 183 is less susceptible to stupid deaths, whereas the Waffens get blown up instantly, sort of thing. So, Flak, why is the Waffentrager more broken in this game than the 183?
So, I mean, I think Shima brings up a good point that, I mean, waffles are a lot easier to kill, which potentially makes it less broken, like he thinks. But I would disagree, because for the 183, I feel like you can't snipe with it, but at the same time you can't brawl with it. There's, that happy medium where it actually works out really well. Versus the waffle, you're just completely redline sniping. And the redline sniping, I think, means that you're at least going to get a clip off. If you can't get a clip off in a waffle, seek some help. And that clip is, thousands of damage. It's like 2,000 damage or something. I don't know what the hell it is, but I think you're gonna, on average, be able to get more damage off in the Waffle than a 183. Like, even as just a total pubby retard, you're gonna get more damage in a Waffle than 183.
Okay, so you're saying that basically because the Waffen can play far more withdrawn due to the accuracy of its gun, it's in a competent player's hands more deadly because it's less on the front lines and more just being able to clip out something from distance where it's safe, whereas the 183 has to be really up close to really make its gun effective.
Well, I mean, I think even in a red player's hands, it's more deadly just because that 2-second inner clip reload, it's ridiculous, and it allows you to. I mean, if you do load APCR, you're gonna have a hard time not pinning things. And I mean, even with the 15 centimeter, you can just spam HE and you're gonna still do pretty well for yourself.
Okay, vote. Closing argument.
The Waffle, it takes literally no skill to sit in the back of the map and just try snipe. Whereas the FV, you can't do that because it doesn't have the accuracy. The FV takes skill with shot placement because it has, I mean, not really low hash pen, but not good hash pen. So if you really want to make the most of it, it actually does require at least a little bit of skill. Whereas the Waffle, you just load up APCR or Heat, depending on which gun you're running, and sit way, way, way in the back and shoot whatever comes anywhere near you. Additionally, the Waffle can't really be 1v1'd because it has that clip damage, whereas the FV, as long as he doesn't one-shot you, you can pretty much kill it before he reloads.
Okay, so often TDs are quoted as sort of being fleets and being in a sense where you don't want to, even if you have a superior force, no one really wants to push a corner in a tank sure because of the power of their guns, that huge alpha or ability to do damage really fast with autoloaders. So my question really now boils down to, which one are you more afraid of? Which one is more difficult to deal with? Which one do you not want to come around the corner and deal with? So, just real quick, Shimba, why is the 183 more deadly than the Waffle?
Always fear RNGesus' wrath.
Okay, Flak.
If we're just coming up to a corner, like, and all of a sudden one of these tanks gets lit, I know the Waffle can kill me. I don't know that the 183 can kill me. Like, I don't think he's gonna high roll me for all my hit points if I'm 100% tank. I know the Waffle can, unless I'm in a mouse.
Vote.
Actually, the Waffle has enough clip damage to kill the mouse on average. Yeah, 183, it's so derpy that, yeah, sometimes you'll get wrecked by it, but you'll probably still be able to get, your shot off and run away. The Waffle can just keep you permatracked, and it's GG for you. The Waffle, in that case, like if it's a skill player you're coming up on, you stand no chance of surviving.
Okay. I'm gonna have to give it, I think up to the Waffle in this case as the most broken. Mostly in terms of the fact that if you did come around a corner, I think Voping and Flak bring up a good point. The Waffle's just gonna kill you. The 183, you're just taking a chance that okay, it might high roll you, but it might also not. Whereas the Waffle is basically guaranteed to kill you. It's very hard to miss in a Waffle. It aims very quickly. It has that 2-second interclip, which is almost impossible to get away from. It's got super high penetration. So I'm going to give it to the Waffle. And it's difficult because I think both Flak and Vogue, you both brought up good points. I really like Shimda's points on the 183, but I think at the end of the day, I think the Waffle is just that tank that is going to consistently kill you, and you have no chance. Whereas the 183 is just a roll of dice, and let's see if it kills you or not. So I'm going to have to give you both points just because I can't really determine who... you both made really solid arguments. So if you guys want to prep real quick while I update this score, we're going to be doing next, we're going to do... if I can scroll up. We'll do which tier 10 heavy tank gun is the best in the game. So which Which gun on a tier 10 heavy tank is the best in the game between accuracy, rate of fire, aim time, damage pen, etc., and just versatility, and which one is the most useful? So we'll be doing that in a couple seconds here. Just going to update the scores. Properties. Alright, so we'll go ahead. Does anyone immediately have thought of one already?
215B.
Okay, alright. So why is the 215B got the best gun?
Actually, it's funny. Around this time last year, Flack, myself, and another person, we were in the same clan, and we were trying to test who would win in a 1v1 because we were fighting over a gold pot, 1v1, and we actually had the 215B versus the Waffle. 215B has a stupidly fast reload, close to the Russian mediums, APCR, accurate as all shit. There's really no downside, except for a 183. There's not a tank that at full health you're going to have a problem brawling out, and you can trade HP stupidly and still come out ahead.
Okay, so Shima's for the 215B, Flack.
I honestly have to say the 215B as well. I mean, the gun acts like a medium gun. The rate of fire is like almost 7 rounds a minute, I think. It's got a sub 2-second aim time. I mean, it's accurate as hell. The AP and the APCR pen are both more than enough to do whatever you need. So 215B easily wins it.
Okay, vote.
If we're just talking about the gun, I think I still have to go with the Waffle because...
Well, it's heavy tanks.
Oh, sorry. Oh, well, no, I probably don't have to go with the Waffle. Yeah, it's definitely the 215B then, because that reload and APCR.
So none of you are going for any of the Alpha guns, or the 50B's gun, or the 57's gun. It's definitely you guys are all going for the 215B.
Yep.
If I could take one gun on a tank, it'd be the 215B.
I mean, there's definitely arguments to be made for other tanks. I mean, the E5 has a great gun. Its stats
the E5 gun is more reliant on the better platform that the E5 is, rather than because the 215B gun alone it's far better. It's just an improved E5's gun.
Absolutely, but I mean,
so
the 50B is a great gun too, but I don't think it comes close to 215B.
So you have a clip of APCR there with the 250 or with the 50B, and does it have more pen?
I think it would have more pen.
325 versus
330, I believe.
No, actually the 215B has one more pen. So, and then obviously no one discusses 57. Now my question actually, we'll give none of you points because you all pick the same tank. I mean, just can't really give points for that. It's pointless, obviously.
User was moved out of your channel.
What?
User was moved out of your channel. User was moved out of your channel.
Oh my god, puppies. Sella.
Might have moved. I might have moved.
Bro, why?
What?
Sella, please. Don't stop. Okay.
Channel switched. User was moved to your channel. User was moved to your channel.
Rip?
User was moved to your channel.
Yeah,
Oh.
Sella. Alright, just a final closing intro. Which, if you had the 57's gun prior to the nerfs to the 57, would you have still chosen the 215B? No points, just curious. Okay, Steel.
No. APCR, DPM.
What about the pre-heat nerf?
Oh, then... I think you
Preheat
still have
nerf,
to
yeah.
go... I think you still have to go with the 215B.
So that consistent fire is just too good.
Yeah.
I'm the same. I'd stick with the 215B APCR. Mysteries.
Okay. Iron has a question, but I'm gonna edit his question a little bit. Just he asked which between the 60-20 and the 140 is the better tank. But let's go with all 4 Russian mediums. So you have 4 to choose from, obviously. Which Russian medium is the best Russian medium? We'll start with Shima.
As much as I've been loving the 430 and its retarded rate of fire, I mean the 62A is still a hands down. Between the terrain passability and the fact that you just can't even overmatch that turret. One of these can sit there like an idiot, hull down, and
Hey guys, okay.
people aren't going to pen you, and you can sit there and go for days. Far better now in quarter meta.
We're talking about heavy tanks, so that's... Okay, so Shim is going for the T62A, flak.
I have to say the 140. This is actually the tank which I learned how to not be garbage at the game in. But
Assuming that you're not garbage at the game now.
yeah, exactly. I mean, the 62A, it's fantastic. I mean, the turret does allow you to just kind of sit there and, you know, soak up shots, but I don't feel like that's good play. It's a little bit more forgiving if you're, you know, not doing so well, but I think the 140 is more flexible. You can go to more places on more maps with it, and you're not as restrained by the terrain because you have that one extra degree of gun depression. I don't like the 430 because, I mean, really, you can get the same DPM out of a 140 or 62A or whatever. I mean, if you have like full BIA and vents and food, I mean, your nearest makes no difference. The DPM.
Hold your questions to like towards the end of this, guys, and I'll get them. Okay, so 140 for flak. Vode, do you have a different one or one of the same?
It's definitely got to be the 140. I mean, yes, the 62A is the easiest to play. It's really easy to just sit there, hull down. But like Flack said, that's not what Unicums do. The 140 has a much higher skill cap, and it's easier to pull 4 or 5k damage games in a 140 than it is a 62A. The 140 is more flexible, has better DPM, that gun depression.
So, here's the thing. You're saying 140 is more flexible. Now, do you just purely mean in terms of what its gun is capable of, in terms of the depression and things like that, or its accuracy, rather than its actual maneuverability? Because actually, I think the 907 has the most engine power. So it's interesting that none of you guys picked the 907, which has the most hit points, most engine power,
most ammo rack power.
Most ammo rack power. Although the 140 does suffer from, is it engine fire that more the 140 sort of has problems with sometimes?
Yeah,
fuel tank.
a little bit engine.
Yeah, or is it fuel tank? I don't know. One of them is prone to be set on fire. So it's interesting that none of you did pick the 907, which is sort of a blend between the 62A and the 140 almost. So Shima, why is the 62A better than the 140 then?
I mean, aside from like simply the hull down and the extra HP, you're talking about in the era where it's far more quarter maps, and again that top overmatch turret, people tend to like discount a little bit, but 62A there are a lot of heavies you can pull side to side and just go to town, and they're not going to pen you. There's no way for them out of it. You can do it to turreted TDs. You can do it to anything. 140, you'll still take a pen. If you poke on a Yagzilla with a 140, you're going to get pen. 62A has to get really, really, really lucky. So like,
we just have to shoot it out of the side of the gun mantlet. We'll go through. But that's also relying that they know how to get that shot and that they can get that shot. Yeah.
Then they're on RNG's wish list.
So you would say that the 62A is more capable than the 140 purely because it has that turret as an option to carry. I mean, I think it was Jackie I was talking to a while ago that said, like, really, in order to carry in this game, you have to have some measurable level of armor to be truly capable of carrying any type of situation. So the 62A turret does come in handy. I mean, the 140 does have a decent turret. It's very bouncy, but it does have more weak points and it is thinner. Okay, so Flak and Vode, we'll go Flak first. Why is the 140 better than the 62A?
I don't think it... Well, I guess I should rephrase. I don't necessarily think it's better, but I think it's better in more situations. So I think there are more maps in the game where the 140 can abuse its pros than the 62A can. I mean, yes, there's a lot of corridor maps, but that doesn't mean you have to fight in them. I mean, I don't like to fight in those corridors. I mean, even on Himmelsdorf, I mean, you can go down that 1-2 line. You can totally start working stuff in the side. I don't think you're restricted to corridors, and that's why I think the 140 is a bit more flexible. And I honestly haven't played the 907, so I can't speak about its maneuverability, but the 140 is also, I believe, like 5 kilometers an hour faster or something. And might have just a little bit more traverse speed.
They certainly have the same engine power. I'm not entirely sure about traverse speed over and terrain resistance and other things like that. Okay, so I mean, obviously, both tanks are very, very similar. All the Russian mediums are very, very similar. We're talking about like really fine margins here. Which one is better, obviously, but do either of you know which one has the better camouflage rating between the 140 and 62A?
Pretty sure the 140 does.
It makes sense that it'd be the 140.
Yeah, I thought it was the 140, but I wasn't sure. Okay. Vote. Why is the 140 better than the 62A?
Serb loves the 140. It's so flexible, so versatile. It can do so many things that the 62A just can't, with gun depression, with just shooting on the move, accuracy. It just is that little extra bit better that allows it to do so much more.
So, you're arguing that the increased ability of the 140's gun to just perform better for you shooting on the move and everything like that is worth the difference between that and the turret? Because, I mean, the 62A is an extremely accurate tank. I mean, you know, I mean, I don't know exactly what the 9.6 changes will do to the Russian medium. It's probably not a whole lot, but perhaps that will make the difference. I don't know. But you're saying that even though it has weaker turret armor, because the gun is more reliable, the tank it's just better performing overall by a slight margin. That all that put together makes up for the turret armor gap.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the turret armor gap is not huge. You can overmatch the 140's turret, but the 140's turret still bounces a lot. There's nothing like the 140. The 62A just doesn't really perform to that extent. It doesn't have the gun depression. It doesn't quite match up in so many other categories. Just having one small trade-off is not gonna break it.
Frontal fire say what?
Well, 62A is relatively good about not getting set on fire, so you probably do have that shimmer. But okay, since they have 2 against 1 shimmer, I'll give you one last closing argument. Why is the 62A the better tank?
I mean, if those reasons aren't enough, then we can always go to the horribly done win 8 bias on it. Which tank is going to give you a bigger EP for the same performance? Well,
then I could flip that on you and argue that the reason the 62A is, you know, so good at padding is because it has such low expected, because puppies don't do as well on it.
Only a question, you're talking about less than a shot, and that's simply a speed difference. I mean, puppies don't do well on lots of tanks. That doesn't mean that they're necessarily bad tanks.
No, I agree. I was just pointing that out. Yeah, this one's really difficult for me because you make a lot of good points. It's not easy. The traverse speed on the 62A is slightly better, but the 140 has higher top speed. Hang on, I'm gonna tell you what, because I am really torn. I don't know, honestly. I'm gonna leave it up to lay viewers. Let's see what they say. One for 62A so far. 140 to 1-1. These guys are the worst. Two 140, 162A. 3 140. Okay, we got some more now. Oh god, it's close. It's just barely in the 140.
Yeah, but you got 2 people arguing, so you got to divide it by half, right? Right?
Wow, that's not how this works, Shinma.
Unfortunately, no, Shinma. I have to give them both points for winning. It's interesting that you picked the 907 because I would have loved to have heard the arguments for that, but it's a close argument. And you know what? Both of them are fantastic tanks. At the end of the day, it's a very difficult one to call. I think Lucic loves the 140 more, I mean, obviously we have Yato, who just adores the 62A, so...
I mean, I feel like it's mostly a debate of playstyle. What fits your playstyle a little bit better?
I still feel they're so close that even playstyle, you don't dramatically change your playstyle between the 140 to the 62A. You have various different utilities that you can use in both tanks, but it's very difficult. But I'm going to give it to the 140 because most people in chat did say 140, although it's actually really close now. I should have had a straw poll just made up, but that's okay. Alright, so let's do that. So, alright, let me tell them any new question. So you guys are both like sort of gamming up on Shim at the moment. It feels unfair.
It does.
Definitely wasn't planned.
Flack,
at
stop
all.
stealing my ideas.
So Tesla wants to do German mediums. I don't know. It's difficult. I'd rather do questions that have more than two possible answers. That's the only thing. I'm trying to. Gator Boy asked the question: why or why not should tier 10s be in esports? But that's a question that I've already sort of like. It would be difficult to overcome my own biases for that. So, let's do. What's the most? Duck asks, what is the most flexible tier 10 tank? So I assume he means what tank at tier 10. I guess he didn't specify class, so you can choose any class you want. Which is the most flexible tier 10 tank? So in terms of what is capable the most of in a pub match, being able to go from point A to point B effectively, safely, and still be able to be effective. So let's go ahead. Let's start with Vode. So which tier 10 would you choose as the most flexible tank? Which tank do you want to be in, where if you have to get to the other flank, you want to be able to not only affect how that flank turns out, but also be able to assist and get there in an efficient time?
I think I'm gonna have to go with the bat chat, and I actually hate the bat chat, but you can so quickly just clip, get to the other flank. By the time you get there, you have 5 shells. That's 2,000 damage, and that flank is carried, and then you can go back to doing whatever you were doing.
Okay, so Vo's going with the bat shot. Flack?
It's a really hard one. In the end, I think I have to say 50B. It's such a versatile tank. It's quick enough to get wherever it needs to go. The gun handling is really good, and that clip damage, as well as the clip time is not that long. You're able to really impact a flank, I think. And with your speed, you can move back from that flank, you can push on that flank, whatever you need to do.
Yeah, Flack stole mine. I'm gonna have to go with the 50D as well. Again, 28-second clip time. APCR, enough HP to pull around, and more than enough speed. I mean, you can just drop a clip on either flank and play 2 flanks. Pretty hard to get more flexible than that.
So, okay, this is gonna be difficult for me because obviously you guys know how much I love the 50B. If you want to play devil's advocate here, the problem with the 50B is it's very large. You guys think that it's because the bat shot is quicker. I mean, the 50B can pick up some speed, but the bat shot is quicker. Is the bat shot, because of its speed, Vote, does that make it the better choice? It's low profile, it can hide if it needs to. Is that a superior feature over the 50B, which is a larger tank, has less clip power, but although less inner clip reload, or rather, overall reload? Does the bat shot, surpass the 50B in flexibility and its just ability to carry other flanks because of the fact that it's much smaller, less of a target, can hide if it needs to, but also has that 2,000 damage clip?
Let me just first say, Anfield, thank you for making my argument for me. You're making this really easy.
Well, I was gonna do the same thing for the other guys by flipping it, but yeah, go ahead. Explain why that is better than whatever features the 50B can have, which we'll get into.
Well, if you really need to flex to the other flank, you can get there quickly, you can get there undetected, and you have more burst when you get there. The 50B is a huge target, and even when it does get there, if it's really a clutch situation, the 50B can't get in, drop its clip, and get out in the same way the Batchat can. The 50B is going to take hits, and the 50B is going to be spotted way earlier.
Okay. So Flak, on the flip side of that, you have a Batchat, which, is going to get there faster, it's smaller, can probably get away quicker, but it also has, it doesn't get to use a high pen APCR like the 50B does. Obviously APCR is standard, but it's a low pen. It does have heat, but I think it's arguable that high pen APCR is better than heat. So would you say that the 50B's ability to actually go in and get a clip off and then still be able to fight and stay on that flank, rather than be out for another 10 seconds with the Batchat would, does the 50B have the advantage purely in terms of its ability to make its shots really count? I mean, it does have 400 less damage, but its shots are probably more likely to do things because the gun handling is much better. Is that better than the Batchat, which has more power potential, but obviously a less reliable gun and such?
I think so. I mean, Vitato brings up lots of great points. The Bat will get there undetected. It can probably get out quicker, but the gun stacks. Like, the Batchat gun is not easy to work with. There's a good chance you're going to miss or bounce a couple of shots at least. Versus the 50B, you're not. I mean, you have a much better chance of actually hitting your shots, of penning your shots, and still being able to get away. And I think the difference is that if you can put out a full clip in the 50B, that is, it's almost a full tank worth right there. That's going to seriously make them reconsider their push. Versus the Batchat, I don't know, the Batchat to me just isn't a threat. I know I can maneuver around it. I can bounce shots on it a lot easier than I can with a 50B.
Shipman, anything to add?
If you're going to be poking out on something with decent armor after you've flexed, assuming you're not going full YOLO, then that's pretty reasonable to assume that you're going to bounce one shot already, so the clip damage drops out. Moreover, if you're flexing around, you've got lots of cover. You can generally control the range of where you're flexing, so that you can minimize that. And by the time they figure out, oh hey, shit, there's another tank there, you're already reclipped, so you can keep fighting. The Bat, if it's flexing around on, say, mediums on the flip side, dumps its clip, has to run if there's anything that's remotely fast. Be good at running, or you're fucked. So yeah, 50B actually can put out its damage, and far more reliably, especially at the gun handling alone with quarter meta. Far more likely that you're going to put 4 for 4 as opposed to the Bat 5 for 5, and that's still another 2.76 seconds of exposure for less HP.
So really what you have here is you have the 50B, which can go in, is more likely to land its shots, so do the damage, the 1600 or whatever average, and then also be able to remain in the general area with enough speed to sort of back off a little bit if it needs to, but then also be clipped relatively soon enough to be able to get back into the fight. Whereas you have the Batchat, which can get there sooner, probably less likely to make all its shots count, but can also, if the flank is unsavable, also still run away to a greater distance and then restart the fight at a different area. So it's tough. I guess what it comes down to is it more worth it to have that staying power, the 50B that reloads quicker, can stay in the area for longer, or have the Batchat, which makes it's harder to get its shots out, not just because its gun is less reliable, but also because it's so vulnerable. I mean, it just gets in there, it can get wrecked really quickly.
One last thing to throw on the 50B.
Yeah, sorry, it's my motherboard.
Which one of these two tanks have you ran out of ammo when doing a hard carry?
Okay, so that's another thing. The Batchat can run out of ammo, says the 57's got the same sort of problem.
Well,
So vote.
I think that's out of the scope of the question. The scope of the question is which one would you rather be flexing out to another flank? And also, when you're flexing to another flank, presumably you're not going to just flex over there, drive over there, and drive at them from the front. If you're already driving from across the map, you might as well take the extra 2-3 seconds to come in from another direction that those tanks won't be expecting. So the Batchat can get to the position a lot quicker and get up behind those tanks so that it doesn't have to worry about missing if it's flexing. Purely if it's flexing, the Batchat has a huge advantage because it can get there so much quicker and get into a much better position to put out that damage. The 50B would have to come at them, or would be more likely to have to come at them from the front.
So you're saying that the Batchat succeeds in the sense that it can come behind the flank that's being pushed in, and come behind the tanks that are pushing on your allies, whereas the 50B, because it's slower and bigger, would have a harder time doing that, would have to come from the front and deal with those tanks frontally. Is that what you're saying, or?
Right.
Right, okay. Okay, so Flak or Shinma, is that really valid? Is the Batchat's ability to get anywhere around that flank more important than what the 50B brings to the table there? So Flak didn't get to talk, so Flak, go ahead.
I mean, it's important, but I don't think that's everything. These tanks are already going to be beat up from fighting for that flank. So I don't think it's necessarily so important where you're able to come from. And, I mean, why can't they just turn and shoot a Batchat which is trying to flank them? I mean, that's what I would do. I just think, in the end, it comes down to being able to put out the damage. The Batchat might be able to get onto the side, and it might do better, but you still have the problem of a Batchat is really good in close, not so good sniping, and I think the Batchat's going to take more damage and put out less damage when it's trying to help that flank.
Okay, that's difficult. You both made really good arguments. I think what it comes down to is what Flack said at the end. There was a really good point that the 50B can actually fire at a distance if it needs to. If the flank isn't holding and it's gotten there, it's done its damage and needs to back off, and it has to fire at a distance, 50B is far more reliable at doing that than the Batchat. So I'm going to give it by a hair to the 50B. So we'll give Shimma and Flack a point, but both did have some good points about the Batchat. I guess what hurts the Batchat a lot is this, that its gun, it's only a one-trick pony in terms of it can get in there and try and clip things out. But if the flank isn't weak enough that it can clip out and kill any tanks and circle those tanks, it can have a really difficult time. So congrats to Shimma and Flack. And we'll go on to our next question. Let's see. That's not a bad one. You guys can. Gator Boy asks, "What is the best brawling tank?" We'll do tier 8 through 10, so you can choose anything in that region of what can brawl the best, and give yourselves a second or so to think about it, and then we'll just update these scores real quick. Okay, so you're allowed to pick any tank class as long as it's tier 8 through 10, if you really wanted to argue an already good luck, but it would technically be allowed. So anything 8 through 10, let's start with Shinma.
E75.
Okay, so why E75?
Good speed, retardedly good armor, good gun. I mean, when you have the lower plate that's angled and throws you above the 230, 240, that just makes it hard enough that people aren't going to be able to snap shots all that well, and you can hull down pretty reasonably. And again, it's for a German meat machine. It's not nearly as slow as you'd expect.
Okay,
It has to stay in power at the end of the day.
okay, so Shimba is going for the E75. This is an interesting choice. Obviously, we have a Tier 9 German heavy tank, renowned for its strong frontal armor and such, and also ability to side scrape, relatively strong turrets. That's an interesting choice. Flak, what are you going with?
Honestly, it's a really hard to say. I mean, the Wheezy 111, 1.4 is really good. The E75 is really good. But I think in a fight between the two, I think the E75. I mean, of course, there's things like the E5, but I don't know. I think the E75 is probably the best straight up brawling tank.
So you're both you have lots of different tanks, 8 through 10. You're both going for the E75. That's interesting.
I just feel like the E75, its gun is incredible. It can put out really good damage. It really is maneuverable. Great armor. There's a lot of other tanks which are great in certain areas, but I think the E75 has a more rounded profile than other tanks.
Just to be clear, are we talking tier for tier, or
Yeah, so we're not saying like let's put up an IS-3 against an IS-7. It's
No,
what
but I
in their
mean-
tier is the best.
and also the best tank as a top tier vehicle? So
Right.
You're not-
So
we're
if
not
it's in a
talking
top
tier
tier
eights, tier
game with let's say you're in an IS-3 and it's a tier 8 game, there's maybe a couple 7s, whatever. Or if you're in a tier 10 game, you're mostly 10s, but maybe a couple 9s and 8s. So what is best in tier overall? So if you were basically, it's like asking what is the best tank in the game. It's not necessarily would a T1 Cunningham beat an E100, but so which is best in tier. So they both have
Brawling,
E75
right?
for brawling. 1-on-1, who's gonna, what's the best sort of tank to deal with these sort of situations where it can just it can bounce shots and fight. Not just like the Batshot can come in and clip any tier 10 medium. What can use its armor well? What can use terrain well, etc., etc. What can DPM, all sorts of different things. What brawls well 1-on-1? Not what tank can over affect overall the whole matches in general. Just in a 1-versus-1 situation, which one is gonna use its terrain really well and armor, etc. So.
Okay, I guess it's me. So in a straight brawl, I don't think there's any doubt the 5100 would win, at least if it's top tier, because it has really good APCR pen and can one-clip any other tier 8 100% of the time. I mean, unless the driver's an idiot.
So you're saying because of the clip power, obviously then it's on a long reload, so if it does fail to land all its shots, it could be in trouble, but you're saying, but they still...
Against any other tank, it would take, 30-40 seconds at least in a 1v1 to kill it from full HP. So it has 40 seconds to get 6 shots off at pen. And yeah, maybe you won't get your clip off in that first 10 seconds, but you're still going to clip way before you die, and you can make every shot count in that time.
These are interesting choices. I'm not gonna lie. I'm curious as to why these.
Honestly, I kind of want to change my answer a little bit.
Okay.
I kind of.
I'll allow it since I explained it further. So go ahead.
I kind of want to say the IS-7 now because I love the IS-7.
That's why I thought someone would say an IS-7 or even a 62A or an E50. But okay, yeah, IS-7. All right, why IS-7?
I mean, the armor, it absolutely abuses anything. That armor, if you're able to even just use it a little bit, you're going to bounce shots. And I think even against an E100, an IS-7 can come out ahead because you can just APCR that turret face, lower plate, whatever. And the IS-7 is so much more maneuverable than something like an E100. It's just, I don't know.
Well, it's faster going forward. It's not necessarily... It can be quite slow to turn.
Obviously, but I mean, it just has the gun, it has the speed to get to the fight, and it has the armor to abuse the terrain anywhere around the fight. And I just think 1-on-1, it's probably going to win. With a skill check, of course.
Okay.
If we're throwing up to tier 10, then
Well, yeah, we
nah,
say through 10.
E-Hundo.
You can't just
E-Hundo
all
is
choice.
it.
You guys are the worst. So, okay. Alright, your
I
new
can
decision
agree
is
with
E100.
Oh no, I'm saying with the E75 for tier 9. Going on flax.
Well, what is,
up
what,
tiering.
is the E75 better in tier than the E100? Which one, if you decide that between, then choose whichever tank you think is better to argue for.
E75 in tier is gotta
Okay,
be
E75
at the
then.
moment.
Okay, so why is E75 better in tier at Brawling? What does it have that the IS-7 doesn't have in its tier, or the 5100 have in its tier, that makes it a better brawler?
Largely staying power. The IS-7 has a great armor profile, but it does have weaknesses. But also, its DPM is pretty lackluster, and its pen is pretty lackluster. The 5100, yeah, it definitely has a clip to die for. Though, once again, go your math. KV5 can't fully clip out.
1780
And-
versus 1800.
So you're going on all normal rolls. Good luck with that and RNGs. But the 50 still has the issue of that there are a lot of things that can go wrong. It just like the 1400 HP isn't really that much, and you'll see it in the league all the time, where if a 50 gets isolated out, it's like, yeah, it can definitely clean up, it can definitely bully 1v1, but
We're talking
if
1v1, Shinba.
right, but that's assuming that it can fully push around. It gets tracked on the first shot and that tank gets to pull back, it's not going to do so well. You're also hoping that you're at full HP, and like, one of these tanks is actually far more likely to be bouncing shots. And in like the tier 9 versus tier 10 environment, like E75 not taking damage far more likely. There's far less threatening it. The IS7, I mean, there's just enough high pen and waffles and everything that it's still a good chance that you're going to bleed stuff, even if you're playing perfectly held down.
Okay, so your argument about the E75 is over the others that its armor is more reliable, or more versatile.
In tier between its gun, its armor, and its reasonable maneuverability, it's gonna have it will have the staying power in pretty much any situation. And again, you still have a gun that can snipe very well. IS-7, not so much. 5100 is a great sniper, but I mean, there are enough things to go wrong on the 5100 that, yeah, if you can push into an engagement against a lone tier 8 where you're fully clipped and they're not ready, if you're not completely retarded, you should be okay. If you go against something that has armor, like, say, a KV4 or such, and you bounce a shot, Smart Driver is going to know that you can't clip them anymore, and they will murder you for it.
Okay, so
And
a big
again-
part of your argument is the lack of reliability of the other two guns in question.
Yeah, for a good bit. And the E75 is far more forgiving if you fuck up a shot
Okay,
against what you're going against.
Flack, why is the IS-7 better than the other two in tier? Because it's interesting you all picked 1.8, 1.9, and 1.10, so...
I just think the i7 it has all the bonuses that you want when you're brawling. You have armor, you have a gun which can pen whatever, and most importantly, the i7 can abuse whatever terrain is around it. It can side scrape no problem, or it can just use the pike. It can face hug something like an E100 without a problem, and the E100 is not going to be able to pen it, whereas the i7 can then just abuse its slightly better reload and whatnot. I just think it has fewer faults. I mean, there's things like the 5100. Sure, you can clip tanks out, and I mean it happens all the time. But I don't know. I mean, if we're talking in a real match, a 5100 clipping out something else, he's still going to take a lot of damage. I mean, E75, yeah, he can one-on-one, but he's still going to take some damage. The IS-7, I think you're going to be taking less damage than any of those other tanks. You have fewer faults, and So I think it's probably the best brawler tier for tier.
And vote why is the 5100 better than those two in its sphere?
Alright, so we're talking an even brawl here where the drivers are about equal skill. So Shinma's comment that the 5100 can get tracked and the other guy would run away. If the 5100 is getting hit by a track shot, presumably the other guy is getting hit by a track shot. And if it's in a position where you're hitting the track and going through to do damage as well, then presumably you're shooting it from the side, which means that its gun is around the corner, able to look at you. So even if you do track it, it's still shooting at you. And even if you track it that first time and do manage to escape, it has an autoloader. It can take a second hit from you before it wants to clip. That's fine. Doesn't matter. As for the E75, it doesn't really have that maneuverability. You said it had the maneuverability to be good in a brawl. It really doesn't. It can get circled by other tier 9
Wait,
heavies.
which one?
The E75?
Doesn't it have a really good turn rate?
It doesn't, no.
Pretty sure
I
the
don't think
E75
so.
is
The
really
turret's
fast at turning.
horrible. Yeah, actually the hull is, but the turret's horrible. You can get around the... If you track it, you can get around it really easily. You can get circled by tier 9 heavies.
Bode, on your first part, you realize that tank guns aren't mounted exactly on the front of the turret.
I do realize that,
They're
yes.
generally center or rear, so they can see your wheels if you're pushing them.
But
far
even
before
if you
you can
do
get your
track
gun.
it that one time, you're not going to be able to track it again. Its repair time is going to be faster than your reload time, and it's a faster tank than you. It'll be able to chase you down. The E75 really doesn't have that versatility. It doesn't have any gun depression. Even when it's hull down, you can still pen the turret front, you can pen the turret cheeks, you can pen the turret roof. The sides are pretty garbage, unless you're side scraping. It's slow moving forwards, and I just don't think it'll hold up. I mean, it's a decent brawler, there's no doubt, but it's very situational. You have to be in a city where you can keep the enemy tank contained. You have to be in a position where you're facing them head on, and you can use your gun to its maximum effect without them being able to use their gun against your armor.
That's exactly what he described, a 1v1.
Right, but you don't know where that 1v1 is going to happen. A 5100 could even 1v1 an E75. It could go in, get a clip off, run away, and the E75 is too slow to chase it down.
So let's talk about this then. Assuming the brawl is frontally, you know, the brawling has evolved to the point where you're beginning to circle each other and things like that. Why is your tank better suited for that sort of scenario than the other two? So we'll start with Flack because you guys have been talking back and forth. So we'll have Flack and then we'll do Vote.
All right. So what exactly? I mean, what do you mean by that?
So okay, so let's say you're not frontally facing each other anymore. You know, it's not trading shots blow to blow by being in front of each other. You've begun to circle each other. You know, whatever tank you're brawling, whatever's happening, it's begun to get to the point where you're trying to get around each other. Why is your tank better suited to handle that, or what features allows your tank to handle that situation better than, you know, the other? We're talking about turn speed as well, so you know the E75 does turn quite quickly. The IS-7 is not quite so fast at turning, but you know, it could also, you know, you could argue that it's got really decent, you know, space armor on the side if the other tank isn't carefully aiming while they're driving. With the 5100, it still has a clip and it's very, very quick. It turns very quickly and it has its gun. There's obviously an autoloader, so that helps too. So let's start with Flack. Flack, why is the IS-7 better suited to be able to deal with a dynamic fight where the other tank is trying to surround you?
Well, I think it's because the IS-7 doesn't necessarily have to be facing you in order to bounce your shots. Like I'm sure everybody has bounced a shot off of the rear of an IS-7. You can't reliably pen the side or the rear turret, and you're able to do. I don't know what the term is for it, but if you're just side scraping on this guy, you know, you're both like right next to each other. The IS-7 has the speed to get either in front of him, behind him, get his shot off, and then get in again before the other guy is able to get his turret fully turned or his gun fully depressed. And it's a low enough tank that it is able to force turret shots from a lot of other tier 10 tanks. So I mean, if I think of a brawl, I'm thinking of like the IS-7 and heck, say another IS-7. I mean, I just think you're able to use your maneuverability in order to outplay him a little bit better.
You think an IS-7 would beat the IS-7 in a 1v1?
I think a skilled IS-7 driver who's able to recognize the situation is going to be able to use it a little bit better. Like, if I'm in an IS-7 fighting E100, I know I can beat that because I'm just able to move around so much quicker than him. I can start backing up, I can get a shot at, his turret ring, his police car, his turret cheeks, his side, whatever, and I can get back into a safe position before he's able to get a shot on anything which is weak.
Okay.
I think the biggest weakness I have to just throw out
User
for
joined your channel.
Black's thing is that
Yeah.
poking on the corners. The problem with the IS-7 with its pike nose is that strength becomes a huge weakness. So if you are actually brawling on a corner and you're pulling out for shots, it means that you're having to expose a weak thing if you're trading shots on a corner. The E75 certainly doesn't have that problem. Even the 5100 can track out if you're playing trade shots. So at either way, that's the only real beef I have with it, is that again, pushing out from a corner after you bounce a shot, you're still exposing. No matter how well you cover your tracks, that pike nose is there and it's just waiting for a shot. So.
Okay, Vode, what you need to do is you need to sell me on the fact that the 5100, despite having its clip, is definitely going to make those shots count, and even if it doesn't, it can still succeed in getting away safely and not lose the brawl completely.
Well, it can definitely get its shots off. It's got ridiculous pen, and if you're up against something like a KV5, you can get your shots off, and you'll pen every time because the KV5 has such big weak spots. But if you're against something else, like an IS-3, where you might get one RNG bounce, that's still, on average, you're going to one-clip him with 5 out of 6 shots. Against any medium or light tank, it's not even a contest. I don't think that you can even argue that. But against a heavy tank, like an IS-3 or a KV-5, the 5100 has the speed and maneuverability that even if it does get miss a shot or two, and it can't clip that tank, it'll definitely be able to get away. It can take a couple hits on the way out without going down, or going down so low that when it comes in for its second clip it'll die. Let me just talk a little bit about the IS-7 as well. The IS-7, yes, it's pretty good in a head-on brawl, but it has too many little weaknesses. Its ammo rack is too vulnerable. If you're face-hugging something like an E100, I don't know about the E100, but I know the VK7201, for example, when face-hugging an IS-7, can just shoot the bar on the turret roof and pen every time. So the IS-7 can't really face-hug that. Yes, it can face-hug things like an IS-4 or an either IS-7 without getting penned, because it's low to the ground and has good upper front plate. But try getting to that position without the other guy doing anything about it. I don't think it's going to work out very well for you. The IS-7 just doesn't have, with that combined with its low DPM and poor gun handling, means that it's just not really reliable enough to win out in a brawl against any other tank anytime. Whereas the 5100, it is. The gun is super reliable, the pen is super high, the burst is enormous, and it will more reliably than the IS-7 or E75, win out in a 1v1 brawl against any other tank.
It's really difficult to choose this. Luna, if you have anything to say between the three of those choices, you can let me know if you want.
What were the choices again?
Shinma thinks the E75, Flak thinks the IS-7, and Vodean thinks the 5100.
Oh, that's really interesting.
I was really surprised by the initial choices, actually.
Yeah, I'm surprised no one took straight up the 100. Or
the 100.
It's too weak in the turret.
Yeah, that's that. Well, I don't know. I'm surprised just no one didn't. It's
Shinma almost did, but that would be a big mistake, I think.
yeah.
He said
Honestly, in my
it's
opinion, I
horrible.
think people are focusing a little bit too much on your face hugging them and not at range. I don't know. I don't know. I think the IS-7 is fairly good. E-75 is a fairly good choice, and no offense, but I just can't personally see how the 5100 is good at brawling. It just eats too many shots, and the ammo rack and engine are fairly bad on it for breaking. Other than that,
My
I
biggest
don't know.
problem with the 5100 at this point is the gun, and I think that if you don't fully
Yeah.
succeed in clipping out the enemy tank, which is quite
You're fucked.
difficult because the 5100 does not have a reliable gun, it's not like the 50B's gun, you can run into a lot of trouble. The IS-7 is good because obviously it has really great turret armor. The S-70 is a little bit of a letdown, but if you're close, relatively close, you're okay with it. The frontal armor is decent. It does lose its driver a bit, which hurts its maneuverability, which is already kind of bad. The E-75 just has a great turn rate. The gun is okay. Its turret's slightly vulnerable, but it does side scrape really well. So it's a really difficult choice. And I think at the end of the day, I think I'm at the moment I'm between the E75 and the IS7 at this point, and I'm gonna give it just barely to the E75. And the reason I'm giving it to the E75 is because of its ability to. Someone said it didn't have good depression, and its depression really isn't that bad, especially compared to the other two. It's not fantastic, but it is there. But also its ability to side scrape. It does have a solid turret. I mean, it's not uber amazing, but it is difficult to pen the cheeks, and we're talking about interior here. So, but mostly what sells me on the E75 is the fact that we're talking about top tier, tier 9 for the E75, and it doesn't have to come up against any of the super tier 10 tank destroyers, which could brutally rape the IS-7. Unless it's in the absolute best possible position, and I've seen JP100s go through the turret of that thing, and it's dumb. So I'm going to just barely give it to the E75, so congrats Shimma to that. We're going to do one more round, because it's been an hour and 15 minutes, and I really thank you guys for coming and doing this, obviously. It's been a lot of fun, so we'll have to get more of these. So we'll do one more round, and we'll make it worth 3 points. And I think what we'll do is we'll argue what is the best map in the game. So if you guys take a couple seconds, think about what map you think is the best design map in this game, and then give me obviously reasons. So give me a second though.
For pubs?
Yeah, for pubs. Obviously, it will be a whole different debate for the others. So it's 2 to Shibna, 3 to Flak, 3 to Vodean. So with 3 points, any of you could win this. So take a couple more seconds. And I
Or
will get-
Luna could tie it.
Yeah, Luna could go all the way.
make it 4 points. I'm not actually gonna.
No, but actually, Luna, though, if you want to grab a couple guys that you want to debate this sort of stuff on, I'm gonna do these, more often. Try and get a couple done.
See if Bulba Asians wanna.
Exactly. Yeah. Get a couple guys from Bulba that want to debate.
Yeah, Mandarin.
Carbon Word can debate with Carbon Word.
Oh my god.
Carbon will just debate himself 5 times over.
Why you not push that red rain?
Yeah, the problem with the map is you're going to come up to tank choice.
Well, it's the same thing except opposite, obviously, with what we did with the worst map. What map caters the best to dynamic gameplay as well as whatever tank you get, you're kind of happy to get this map. So, let's who did I start with last time?
I started last time with
Okay.
5100.
I'm
Okay.
pretty sure Flak's supposed to start at this point.
Well, I mean, Flak's in the middle, but I guess it doesn't really matter. So, Flak, do you wanna go ahead? What is the best map in this game?
Honestly, I have to say the map, which every time I get it, regardless of the tank I'm in, I'm happy, is Steps. Steps, obviously, it's changing actually in the next patch, so that might change. But right now, I think Steps always works for me. That 7, 8, 9 line is just so fantastic. It can be played by any tank, especially mediums. I like to drive mediums a lot. And you're able to use those hills so amazingly. You can get all the way down on that 9-0 line if you're in a heavy, and you can push that really easily. I mean, there's the whole other side of the map, which, I mean, I guess you can use, but, screw that side. But even that side is not bad. I think it's a good map because it's a corridor, but it lets you flex around. You're able to use flanks on either side. You have a whole middle road which you can come up and surprise them, and already sits in pretty regular positions that you can one-shot.
Okay, Shidma?
Himmelsdorf, because there's no better way that MM can tell Cancer to go fuck itself.
Damn it, you stole my thunder.
Okay, so why Himmelsdorf?
Once again.
I mean, other than the pure artillery, because I mean, artillery does sometimes find
it's
sneaky
a
shots on
well-balanced
Himmels,
map,
but
and where Artie actually has a meaningful impact on the game, it's so few and far between. I mean, they're going to be like 10 comps that throw it. It can be harder to play in a light, but it's still a fun map. And I mean, the fact that it's been a fun map since closed beta, hell, I think since alpha, probably has got to win it out. I still enjoy Himmels, like, to this day, and I've been playing since closed beta, and I don't think many people are like, oh fuck, Himmelsdorf, when they see it.
okay. Vode?
I know what Shin was saying with Himmels, and I was going to start off by saying that, but I don't think it's actually my choice. I just really... I'm happy every time I see Himmels, because I know I'm not going to be clicked on, or at least not as much. But I think I'm going to have to agree with Flack. It's got to be Steps. Steps is... If you're in a light tank on Himmelsdorf, it kind of sucks to be you. You can play it, it can be done, but on Steps, it doesn't matter what tank you're in, you can easily play it, and it doesn't matter whether you're high tier or low tier as much. You can put yourself in a position where even as bottom tier, you can have a good time. And even though it's a nice open map where Artie can do a lot of work and Artie can hit pretty much everything, Artie isn't really so big a threat because there's nice big hills you can hide behind. And even if you're not Artie safe, you're mobile enough that Artie isn't going to be the most impactful part of the battle. Artie won't be the decision maker.
Okay, so you're saying that artillery doesn't have a huge influence on the development of Steps gameplay?
Well, I'm saying Artie, it's not as big as some maps. It definitely has an impact, but Artie is not going to decide the match based on our Artie is better or your Artie is better or this guy got clicked or that guy got clicked.
Okay, just out of curiosity, before we move on to more in-depth discussions on your individual maps, Luna, what would you have chosen?
Huh? Oh, I honestly, my favorite map or best map?
Favorite map, the one that you enjoy the most, that you think is, or well, what is the best design map for the game?
The way I play, and please note, the way I play is like not very good, so this may differ. I'm gonna pick a wild card here, and I'm going to have to specify something. No Artie proc. With artillery, it's a mediocre map, but under the condition where there's no artillery, you can play it, and I think, and it's mostly just the skill ceiling on the map. If there's no Artie and you can play mid, so i.e. you have gun depression or view range or something, the skill ceiling on that map is just incredible. I can pull easy 8,000 damage games effortlessly.
But what would you argue is in terms of getting a heavy tank though on that map?
Heavy
If
tanks
there's no
are a lot
Artie, it's
harder.
fine.
If
there's no
heavy
Artie,
tanks,
it's fine.
you can go hill, I guess. I don't know how to play heavy tanks in that map.
Yeah, it's
but
still not super dynamic for heavy tanks, is what I'm saying. And the thing that appeals to me about Steps that they argued over Himmelsdorf, because I love Himmelsdorf too. I love Steps too, but is what they said about the light tanks on Himmelsdorf do struggle.
They don't do anything. Mediums on Himmelsdorf also. If you don't go 3-line or hill, you're basically fucked.
Yeah, so that's another interesting point. What I can say about Himmel's over Steps is that artillery really does struggle on Himmelsdorf to promote any campiness in the gameplay because there's so much cover. I mean, they do get shots, but I've never been on a Himmelsdorf battle where it's been completely stagnant. Whereas I have been on a Steps battle where it's been completely stagnated by just 3 or 4 artillery on each team, just wrecking anything that pokes out.
Sorry, I'm gonna have to change my answer then. Just purely most balanced map and best map, Ensk.
Ensk has long term been one of my favorite maps.
Yeah.
The problem I would say with Ensk is the size of it. Can sometimes be a problem, especially if you're a light tank as well. Mediums sometimes get crowded out a little bit, don't have room to really breathe. One map I actually really enjoy is Sacred Valley.
No,
The Korean
that's
one?
the
With the mid
the
and
bigger
the
one.
south. I don't mind that map so much. The only thing I would change
I don't mind.
is the southern flanks, just a bit useless, that's the only thing. But anyway, we're discussing steps in Himmelsdorf. So Shimmer thinks Himmelsdorf. Himmelsdorf has the pros of the fact that artillery is almost, not completely, but almost useless for artillery, so they can't really stagnate your gameplay. But you can be clicked. You can get fucked on hill, yep. On the flip side of that, with steps, that allows light tanks to be effective on steps because they can actually do things. So I guess my question to you guys would be, which one has the most unique and dynamic gameplay where things flow differently? In a sense where if you're in a heavy tank, you can sort of play different kind of styles. You're not relegated to one different way to play it. So who has the most dynamic map? You could be in a medium tank and be like, I'm not going to go there. I'm going to go here. So Shimma, go ahead and on Himmelsdorf. Why is Himmelsdorf more dynamic and better for unique gameplay?
I mean, when it comes down to it, Himmels has 4 attack lines, really. Very few maps have 4 viable attack lines. I mean, the 3 line's a bit speculative if you've lost hill control, but even still, like steps, you've got 2 attack lines. That's it. And the attack lines are basically, well, you hope your other flank doesn't fail miserably. And while you're being like, oh my god, steps is awesome, think of a scenario where steps and you're going in a heavy with 5 cancer. Now try and think of the same sort of disappointment you get from seeing steps to a situation in Himmels where you feel equally as disappointed.
Okay, so your argument is that really with artillery, it's not forcing you to well, first, you're not relegated to 2 different flanks. You're saying that steps is two-dimensional, 2 flanks. But you're safer from artillery, so you're more likely to be able to not be so afraid to be aggressive. Whereas on steps, you're more afraid.
And Himmels, with its size and how it's set up, that even if you have people who are just completely clueless, it's very hard for them to find themselves in a spot where they're going to be doing absolutely nothing. It's simple enough that, like, again, that's why it's one of the intro maps, but it's still got enough dynamism that you can still be playing on different flanks. You can still be flexing.
Okay. So Flack, why is steps better than Himmelsdorf? Why is steps more dynamic?
You might only have like 2 primary attack lanes on steps, but I feel like there's so many different ways to play that. The hills are just the perfect height that, I mean, especially in a heavy tank. I mean, you can use your depression, you can move up. I mean, there's just so many ways that you can play every single hill. So, I mean, yes, maybe, I mean, if you have 5 arty, alright, that's just retarded. But if you just have 3 arty on steps, even if you have 5 arty on steps, I think you're able to abuse the terrain. There's so many places you can abuse it with whatever tank you're in, that it doesn't matter. That 5 arty doesn't matter. I mean, 5 arty, you're probably going to get hit anyways, just because luck of the draw. But you can use that. You can use all the terrain, all over the map, whichever side you want, to avoid arty, to avoid TDs, to avoid whatever. Himmelsdorf, I feel like Himmelsdorf is extremely static. You have that 8 line where all the super heavies like to push. Alright, good, that's fine. Let's sit here with my U100 and brawl your U100 for 4 minutes. You have a hill which doesn't have enough features on it to make it interesting. The only interesting feature the hill has is that it can be shot from the 3 line. Other than that, you don't really have a whole lot of cover. You don't have places on the hill where you can really hide from the arty. I mean, yeah, you can hide behind the church a little bit, but a clever arty will still kind of splash you or hit you. You have that 2-3 line on Himmels, which, again, I mean, if somebody's just in the right spot, they can really punish you for trying to push down that line. Steps, you just have maybe 2 corridors, but you have infinite ways to use those corridors. That's why I think it's the best.
Okay, vote. Anything to add?
Yeah, a couple things. First, I just want to. I don't want to change my choice, but I just want to bring up El Haluf, because you can really.
Yeah, the new El Haluf, yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah, you can go anywhere with any tank and make it work. It might not be great, but yeah, that's just something to think about. About Himmelsdorf, I don't know. I know you said there's no feeling worse than getting five RDs on steps, but being in a light tank on Himmels is kind of awful most of the time. Himmels also has the problem, like Flack was saying, if you're a medium, you kind of have to go hill. You can work the 1-2-3 line, but if the other team is smart, you're basically forced to just camp 1-2-3. You can't really do anything. It's really static. If you're a heavy tank, I wouldn't say heavy tanks can go hill. You see it sometimes. Sometimes it works if it's a fast heavy, but heavy tanks are basically relegated to either the 3 lines, sort of, or tank alley, which, again, pretty static. At least until something starts dying. Whereas steps, any tank can go anywhere and make it work. And it doesn't matter. Himmels is so dependent on at least some of your tanks going to hill, at least some of your tanks holding tank alley. Steps, even if you leave the entire 890 line open, you can still take control of the 1-2-3 lines and win the game. Even if you leave the entire 1-2-3 lines open, you can still control the 890 and win the game.
Ooh, okay, yeah, that's good arguments on both sides. That's actually a really difficult one too. I mean, the only thing I would argue, or be interested to hear you argue, is which map is more does one of your 2 maps have better, a better side? Because I always feel like on Himmelsdorf, the side that spawns with the church that splits the cap in half, I feel like the hill is much stronger from that side because you can get up safely and get down safely. I think that's a huge advantage. Is there something on steps that is similar? Either Lunar or Shimba might be able to help me. I don't. Do steps have a side that's particularly strong?
There's a few spots. They're not really major. From south side, the rocks are a lot. They're a lot better than the other rocks. They provide a lot more cover. There's the rocks on the north side, where to actually get to the useful rocks, you have to cross and get shot. It's pretty early game. If you're gonna go there mid game, you'll get fucked. But early game, it's not that big of a deal.
Do you mean 1-2 line?
Yeah, and 8-9, the south side has a lot stronger hull downhill. That's one thing that I never really liked about steps from the north. Pretty much from north, if you don't rush all the way to their hull downhill, I can't remember where it is here, I can pull up a picture. Basically from south, they have a completely, not nearly flat hill, but it's a nice incline, so if you have like 8 degrees of gun depression or more, you can poke it really well, whereas the north side completely lacks any sort of hill like that, unless you're gonna poke up and get shot from TDs from the base. That's my only problem with steps. Otherwise, it's fairly good for being balanced. Yeah.
Oh, so between the 2, which one would you choose?
Which one did I choose for just being overall better? Oh, that's really hard.
Yeah, it is. See, my job is hard.
Can I have a second to think about that?
Yeah. So it is interesting. With this, the problem is obviously most servers are already on 9.6. We have steps changes that we haven't really been able to discuss the meta of. In pub matches, I think I went over it once just for sake of league play later, but I mean when I was on the test server, that was ages ago, so it is difficult to know exactly what's changing, although you could argue that gives Himmelsdorf an advantage in the fact that it has never received a real change, it's just received a winter map. Oh, there you go, Himmelsdorf wins because that's a winter map. Both maps are one of my personal favorites of mine. I love both of them. Really, really difficult. And then I have to also choose between Flak and Vode. If I did choose steps, which one of those 2 would be better arguments, so that's difficult too. I think I'm gonna have to go with just slightly. I think I would go steps.
Yeah, I was about to say. I would
Just
throw my
by
vote
by
in for
very
those.
fine margins. Very fine margins. Steps.
I don't know. I'm a little bit biased. I actually don't like Himmelsdorf. I think I'm one of the only people in the game who doesn't like it.
Is it more that you don't like it, or you actually do think it's not a great design?
Both. So much of the map is unplayable as just for map design. The entire middle is really unplayable unless
Yeah,
you're
I would like to see the middle change from a courtyard
Yeah.
into just a set of streets. I think that would be much
Yeah,
more
and-
exciting.
unless you're gonna do like Carbon Ward, skirmish or not skirmish. What is the other one? Team battle, IS6, mid rush. Go get to their windows before they can get across. Unless you're gonna do that, the mid is completely unplayable by just about anything except for like early lights. But I just don't like Himmelsdorf because it seems so bland to me. It's basically go hill or YOLO all the way down 3-line and push and hope that your team doesn't collapse before you can get there. It seems so team dependent. I don't really like maps. I don't really like any game where I have to depend on the rest of the team to do something, which is again why I liked Proc because of the high skill.
Yeah, I feel you. Maps that rely on teammates to
Do
assist
something.
you are not good maps. Yeah, so I guess we'll go with steps. So in this case, Flak and Vote are tied. It's difficult to really say who made the best argument. So in order to make a tiebreaker, let's go with whatever your second best map in, bar Himmelsdorf. So after steps, not choosing Himmelsdorf, what would you choose as your second map and why? We'll do let's just speed round real quick. Flak.
Probably Westfield. I really like Westfield. That hill, again, you can play that hill in just any tank. I think that's the 1-2 line. You can play almost any tank there. There's not any real magical forest where TDs can super hide from you. I mean, there's that spot in the back from the north spawn where some shit hides, but you're still able to hurt that and be fairly safe. It's got a city which is very dynamic and lots of fun to play, and it's very interesting to brawl in that city and eventually get out of that, and then you're having to brawl against stuff in their field or come around on their hill. That 0 line, it can be interesting. I tend to avoid it, but you do have some forest in there which you can really play some cool vision games with light and medium tanks. There's that whole valley, which again, there's just enough cover and concealment that you can play vision games. There's houses where you can just kind of brawl a little bit out. I mean, that
Okay.
almost never happens.
Vode, what's your second pick?
I already mentioned El Holuf,
So, El
and I think
Holuf.
I'm gonna go with that. Yeah, you can go anywhere and anything, and because it's so hilly, Artie really doesn't have much impact, which is always nice. Artie can get shots if you're sitting out in the open, but that's more on you than Artie. And yeah, you can go anywhere in any tank. It's usually pretty dynamic. There's not a whole lot of opportunity to really chai snipe very effectively. So it's very brawly, it's always moving, and every game is different on El Haluf.
Yeah, Westfield, I have a problem with Westfield because I think my problem with, in terms of how to play Westfield is that you have to rely on your puppies to do something. And in that terms, it's control of the 0 line through the mid. So if you're in that middle town, if you don't have control of the 0 line, you're dead. And with El Haluf, it's a little less rely on your puppies to do a specific task. And so because of that, I think I'm going to give it to Vode. So Flak very close second, and Shim a third. So congratulations to Vode, you won the first ever tank debates. We'll be doing a lot more, and obviously I'll be able to introduce prizes later. I just need to sort of fix format issues or what worked about this that I'll improve. But I want to thank you guys for actually spending your spare time to come talk about tanks. So thanks very much, and also best of luck to you guys in the playoffs. I hope you guys do really well and represent North America if you get to the grand finals well as well. So yeah, thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Love you.
Pixel tanks
Yeah, thanks,
meta.
man.
Amazing.
I love you guys too.
And,
Heavy 20 just chimed in, says Ensk a real man map.
Yeah, I agree. I like it.
I do like
Ensk
Ensk.
is really close. That's a fantastic map.
But it has a couple of little issues. Like
I think
for
Ensk
video
is just
things.
slightly too small.
Yeah.
Wait, do you guys remember when they had that mode teased one point where they had a massive Ensk?
Oh yeah, like the PvE mode.
Yeah,
where
whatever
you
happened to that? Weird.
Soon TM.
Yeah, soon TM. If they expanded N-Scout, it would clearly, I think, be a winner. But it is one of my favorite maps. But yeah.
I'd have put Enskin if it still had the Yak Tiger launching glitch.
Oh yeah. All right. Well, I appreciate it, guys. I will probably be making a thread on Le Watt Labs forums so I can try and gather who wants to, be interested in future debates and such, and we'll get a more clean timeline as well as questions submitted beforehand on Twitter or something like that to speed the process up and such. So, yeah, I will certainly get in contact with you guys, and especially Vode, so he can come back and defend his title as he is current champion. But obviously, in the meantime, I know you guys still have wiggle stuff to do, so we'll work around that. But yeah, thanks, guys.
Yeah, see you.
Yeah,
See you.
it was fun. Have a good one.
Disconnected.